Well, thank you for attending this webinar, or should I say this short summary of the webinar, Writing an Essay at B2 Level. Okay, let's begin and begin with a reminder or a signpost. Okay, the Cambridge English Assessment website is a very rich website full of obviously information about tests, but lots of practical tips and ideas for teachers, from novice teachers all the way through to more experienced colleagues. And one of I think, the most important resources and one of the underused resources are the handbooks that Cambridge produce, which accompany each and every examination. Because in the handbooks, you'll find not just a description of the test and the tasks, but you'll also find some sample answers, guidance, advice on how to approach the task, and comments from examiners. So, a good resource for you to familiarize yourself with the demands of the task in question. Of course, not only will you find advice and ideas, but you'll also find some of the secrets. Well, not really secrets, but anyway, you'll find a little bit of information about the assessment scales, which can help us in our teaching. Now, I'm not saying that we should actually teach for the test, but knowledge of how our children or how our candidates are going to be assessed will certainly help us prepare them well, or should I say, prepare them better. Looking at the scales here, you can see that essentially there are four criteria: content, communicative achievement, organization, and language. And some of them speak for themselves, but let's just reflect on them. So language, obviously vocabulary and grammar, and keywords here are accuracy and appropriacy and range. Organization, well organized. Well, when we think about an essay, I guess essays, organization is a key feature of an essay. I mean, there need to be at least, if not signposts, there needs to be a roadmap so the reader can see where they're going there. Interestingly enough, the word variety comes up here when we're talking about the assessment scale of organization. But what does that variety mean? Does it simply mean a variety of linking words? Or does it mean variety in the way we organize the writing, or variety in the way that we organize paragraphs? We'll talk about that a little bit later on. Well, content is defined by the task itself. I don't really have much to say there, but communicative achievement, okay, big words. What does it mean? It means the effect on the reader. Well, if you're a reader of an essay, what do you want? Well, you want to be informed. Do you want to have a balanced argument? You don't necessarily want to have the writer's opinion unless you've asked for it, okay? But you essentially want to be informed, and you want any, I suppose, any familiar questions or dilemmas to be answered or at least reasoned, okay? So communicative achievement, it's less on understanding or sharing opinion, it's more on balance and, what can I say, providing the answers to problems or questions. Well, on we go, and we'll look at the task together now. And the task is sourced from, I think, from the handbook. So every country in the world has problems with pollution and damage to the environment. Do you think these problems can be solved? And here's an answer. And I have to be honest, it's not my answer. It's an answer which is produced by one of my new friends, the artificial intelligence named Copilot. Now, let's just talk about ethics before we go on. Why did I source the article? Sorry, why did I source the essay from Copilot? Largely to see what it would give me, and also largely to break it down in this webinar. But I mean, ethics are important, and to be quite honest, I don't think we should be teaching things which we cannot do ourselves. So the most important thing to remember initially at this part of the webinar is that, yeah, it's great to see what other teachers are doing. It's great to see what AI can give us, but ultimately, the essay is teachable, or you can teach the essay because you do it yourself. So make sure you write these essays. Now, I'm not going to read through the essay with you, but I'm sure you'll be reading it through as I speak. But what I am going to do is kind of like talk about the essay in terms of sections and parts. I think we all know that an essay probably has three or four parts. I mean, there's a title, or is there? There's an introduction and there's a conclusion, and then there is what we would call the main body. And these are indicated here with the various colors. Okay, so the first thing to notice here is, of course, the title. And the title is engaging. I mean, you write an essay, you want people to read it, and one of the ways to get people engaged, instead of saying what it is to ask a question. So an essay needs a title, an essay needs a heading there, and try to encourage the students to think not just of a short, simple sentence, i.e., the issues of pollution and damage to the environment, but to think of an engaging title. And an engaging title is quite simply a question. Okay, so write a sentence and transform it into a question. Hey, presto, you've got your title. The introduction, very often it's thought to be a restatement of the question. Well, it is and it isn't. Because if you look at this introduction, there are two sentences here. One of them is the issue or the problem, and the other is not the answer, but rather a roadmap of the essay. Okay, so let's tell our students, instead of summarizing the title, let's tell the students in the introduction to identify the problem and then write a short sentence which kind of summarizes or is a roadmap of the essay that follows. Now, this word problem, I've mentioned it, and if you look at the paragraphs, the following paragraphs, the paragraphs that follow the introduction, the three paragraphs in this particular essay, you'll find that these paragraphs they follow not necessarily the, what can I say, the acceptable or the preferred structure, because what we would often say is to our students is to write a paragraph, have an introductory sentence, a topic sentence, let's say, and then some support. So this is what students would do religiously and perhaps blindly. It's okay, it's not wrong, but does it, how can I say, satisfy the reader? Because remember, what the reader wants here is a balanced argument. They want their questions to be answered and so on there. So what you see here is that the paragraph is actually structured quite leanly and quite effectively with three, maybe four sentences, and it's structured according to problem, solution, action. Transport causes a lot of pollution, problem. Switching to electric cars and improving public transport can help reduce emissions. Solution. Action. Government should encourage people to use eco-friendly transport. So here's a lovely little model of a paragraph which you can take to the students instead of, or should we say as well of, introduction and support, topic, sentence, and support. Encourage them to write paragraphs which are problem, solution, and action. And if you're going to do this, also take the opportunity to what can I say, revise or review the language of recommendation. How do you propose actions? Well, through should or ought to, and so on there. The second paragraph in the essay has a similar structure, but it demonstrates something else. And what we've done here is we've highlighted lots of pairs. It's not waste, it's industrial waste. It's not rules, it's stricter rules. It's waste disposal, community cleanup, awareness campaigns, water bodies. And what you can see here is that the writer, in this case Copilot, has added variety by modifying the nouns. It's called descriptive coupling. You take something and you describe it with an adjective. And notice here we're only talking about nouns, because if we start describing verbs, it becomes a bit more like a story here. So another great technique that you can take into the classroom is, as students start talking, building up their arguments and so on and so forth, then maybe in one paragraph, maybe in two, you can say to them, okay, modify the nouns. Tell me a little bit more about the theme. Waste, industrial waste, bodies, water bodies, rules, stricter rules. Lovely idea. But once again, this paragraph, problem, solution, action, but variety is brought by the way we use the vocabulary. Now, the third paragraph of the main body of that essay that was given to us is also a problem, solution, action paragraph. But what it shows here is another key feature of good essay writing. It shows how much is made of little. In other words, we've got a very simple word like forest, but the word forest is modified to become forestry. It's modified to become deforestation and reforestation and so on and so forth there. Hey, wow. Suddenly, word building exercises become relevant to writing. And this is really good for us teachers, because what we would normally do when we were writing in the classroom or preparing students to write in the classroom, we would ask them to mind map or brainstorm words. And very often they would come up with a whole sort of series series or list of words, all related to the environment, and many of which they would not be able to use in the essay. But what this example is telling us is that, hey, let's mind map or brainstorm words which are related to or come from an original word. So forest, what words do you get from forest? Forestry, deforestation, environment. What words do you get from environment? Environmental activist. I don't know what it is because these chains of word built, so how can I say these word built chains are obviously key to getting your message across. So to summarize so far, what we're saying with the main body is, okay, bring a bit of variety into your paragraph organization, problem, solution, action, okay? In terms of your language things to teach, okay, well, if you looked at the verbs, okay, passive might be very, very useful, but also the language of recommendation and the language of recommending actions. And hey, a really good focus or a really big focus on word building. It brings us now to the last part of the essay, and the last part of the essay was the conclusion. And what you see is if you compare the conclusion to the introduction, it's more or less the same size, looks the same, it's beautifully balanced. And in fact, that's what the conclusion is. The conclusion is not a statement of your opinion. It's simply a rewriting, a transformation of the introduction. So once again, if the students have written a good introduction, then simply tell them, okay, rewrite your introduction, and hey, presto, you've got your conclusion. Okay, those are my tips for now.